I thought you might want to see this. See how many birds are there, Willem? There's 5 birds there. 4 on the suet.
You know, all the stuff. See, I looked at them earlier.
Not this suet, but the new suet I put on the next one.
Over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yes, yeah, there was a bird there.
Pretty cool, eh?
Yeah.
Isn't it wonderful?
Mm-hmm.
I knew you would be duly impressed.
It is very nice.
Dooley.
Dooley, dooley.
And my new big chunk of beef fat.
Mm-hmm.
Suet. Now 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and the woodpecker's up there now too. Boy, they love this stuff just as much as the sunflower seeds. Sure costs a lot less. Big daddies come. That's beautiful.
read some Harry Potter, Dad.
Okay, go ahead, Dad.
Alright. Chapter 9, The Writing on the Wall. What's going on here? What's going on? Attracted no doubt by Malfoy's shout, Argus Filch came shouldering his way through the crowd. Then he saw Mrs. Norris and fell back, clutching his face in horror. My cat! My cat! What happened to Mrs. Norris? He shrieked. And his popping eyes fell on Harry. You! He screeched. You murdered my cat. You've killed her. I'll kill you. Argus! Dumbledore had arrived on the scene, followed by a number of other teachers. In a second he had swept past Harry, Ron and Hermione, and detached Mrs. Norris from a torch bracket. Come with me, Argus, he said to Filch. You too, Mr. Potter, Mr. Weasley, Miss Granger. Lockhart stepped forward eagerly. My office is nearest, Headmaster, just upstairs. Please feel free. Thank you, Gilderoy, said Dumbledore. The silent crowd parted to let them pass. Lockhart, looking excited and important, hurried after Dumbledore. So did Professors McGonagall and Snape. As they entered Lockhart's darkened office, there was a flurry of movement across the walls. Harry saw several of the Lockharts in the pictures dodging out of sight, their hair in rollers. The real Lockhart lit the candles on his desk and stood back. Dumbledore lay Mrs. Norris on a polished surface and began to examine her. Harry, Ron and Hermione exchanged tense looks and sank into chairs outside the pool of candlelight, watching. The tip of Dumbledore's long crooked nose was barely an inch from Mrs. Norris's fur. He was looking at her closely through his half-moon spectacles, his long fingers gently prodding and poking. Professor McGonagall was bent almost as close, her eyes narrowed. Snape loomed behind him, half in shadow, wearing a most peculiar expression. It was as though he was trying hard not to smile. And Lockhart was hovering all around him, making suggestions. It was definitely a curse that killed her, probably the transmogrifian curse, torture. I have seen it used many times, so unlucky I wasn't here. I know the very counter curse that would have saved her. Lockhart's comments were punctuated by Filch's dry, racking sobs. He was slumped in a chair by the desk, unable to look at Mrs. Norris, his face in his hands. Much as he detested Filch, Harry couldn't help feeling a bit sorry for him, though not nearly as sorry as he felt for himself. If Dumbledore believed Filch, he would be expelled for sure. Dumbledore was now muttering strange words under his breath and tapping Mrs. Norris with his wand, but nothing happened. She continued to look as though she had been recently stuffed. I remember something very similar happening in Ouagadougou, said Lockhart, a series of attacks. The full story is in my autobiography. I was able to provide the townsfolk with various amulets which cleared the matter up at once. The photographs of Lockhart on the walls were all nodding in agreement as he talked. One of them had forgotten to remove his hairnet. At last Dumbledore straightened up. She is not dead, Argus, he said softly. Lockhart stopped abruptly in the middle of counting the number of murders he had prevented. Not dead, choked Filch, looking through his fingers at Mrs. Norris, but why is she all stiff and frozen? She has been petrified, said Dumbledore. Ah, I thought so, said Lockhart. But how, I cannot say. Ask him, shrieked Filch, turning his blotched and tear-stained face to Harry. No second year could have done this, said Dumbledore firmly. It would take dark magic of the most advanced. He did it, Filch said, his pouchy face purpling. You saw what he wrote on the wall. He found in my office. He knows I'm a... Filch's face worked horribly. He knows I'm a squib, he finished. I never touched Miss Doris, Harry said loudly, uncomfortably aware of everyone looking at him, including all the Lockharts on the walls. And I don't even know what a squib is. Rubbish, snarled Filch. He saw my quickspell letter. If I might speak, Headmaster, said Snape from the shadows, and Harry's sense of foreboding increased. He was sure nothing Snape had to say was going to do him any good. Potter and his friends may have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, he said, a slight sneer curling his mouth as though he doubted it. But we do have a set of suspicious circumstances here. Why was he in the upstairs corridor at all? Why wasn't he at the Halloween feast? Harry, Ron and Hermione all launched into an explanation about a death day party. There were hundreds of ghosts, they'll tell you where we were there. But why not join in the feast afterwards, said Snape, his black eyes glittering in the candlelight. Why go up that corridor? Ron and Hermione looked at Harry, because Harry said he heard something very fast. Something told him it would sound very far-fetched if he told him he had been led there by a bodiless voice no one but he could hear. Because we were tired and we wanted to go to bed, he said. Without any supper? Said Snape, triumphant like a smile flickering across his gaunt face. I didn't think the ghost provided food fit for living people at their parties. We weren't hungry, said Ron loudly, as his stomach gave a huge rumble. Snape's nasty smile widened. I suggest, Headmaster, that Potter is not being entirely truthful, he said. It might be a good idea if he were deprived of certain privileges until he is ready to tell us the whole story. I personally feel he should be taken off the Gryffindor Quidditch team until he is ready to be honest. Really, Severus, said Professor McGonagall sharply, I see no reason to stop the boy playing Quidditch. This cat wasn't hit over the head with a broomstick. There is no evidence at all that Potter has done anything wrong. Dumbledore was giving Harry a searching look. His twinkling, light blue gaze made Harry feel as though he was being x-rayed. Innocent until proven guilty, Severus, he said firmly. Snape looked furious. So did Filch. My cat has been petrified, he shrieked, his eyes popping. I want to see some punishment. We will be able to cure her, Argus, said Dumbledore patiently. Professor Sprout had recently managed to procure some mandrakes. As soon as they reach their full size, I will have a potion made that will revive Mrs. Norris. I'll make it, Lockhart butted in. I must have done it 100 times. I could whip up a mandrake restorative draught in my sleep. Excuse me, said Snape icily, but I believe I am the potions master at this school. There was a very awkward pause. You may go, Dumbledore said to Harry, Ron and Hermione. They went as quickly as they could without actually running. When they were a floor up from Lockhart's office, they turned into an empty classroom and closed the door quietly behind him. Harry squinted at his friends' darkened faces. Do you think I should have told him about that voice I heard? No, said Ron without hesitation. Hearing voices no one else can hear isn't a good sign, even in the visiting world. Something in Ron's voice made Harry ask, You do believe me though, don't you? Of course I do, said Ron quickly, but you must admit it's weird. I know it's weird, said Harry. The whole thing is weird. What was that writing on the wall about? The chamber has been opened. What is that supposed to mean? You know, it rings a sort of bell, said Ron slowly. I think someone told me a story about a secret chamber at Hogwarts once. It might have been Bill. And what on earth is a squib, said Harry. To his surprise, Ron stifled a snigger. Well, it's not funny really, but as it's Filch, he said. A squib is someone who was born into a wizarding family but has not any magic powers. Kind of the opposite of a muggle-born wizard, but squibs are quite unusual. If Filch is trying to learn magic from a quickspell course, I reckon he must be a squib. It would explain a lot. Are you still doing this thing here?
Yes, I guess it's time to turn it off.
Yeah.
There's my Willem.
And all my Harry Potter stuff is in there too.
Uh-oh. Mm-hmm. Now you won't have to read the book. Bye.
Right, now you can